Hello. Welcome to another exciting episode of This Week in Mad Men. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we begin 1965?
Yes.
Before we go on, we have a new account here at This Week in Mad Men. So I wanna throw out some ideas. I've been batting around for them. Gazelle.com. Everybody can go check it out online, whatever that means.
You have to wait in line to go see this?
Here's my little pitch. Yeah, I had. You can pull up the site. I had the art department throw this together. You need to keep up with the Joneses, and that means when the new hot electronics come out for your home, the 23-inch TV, the hi-fi, you want to be the first on your block showing it off to the neighbors. But this means you have a lot of old technology sitting around. What do you do with it? Have a yard sale? Ugh, how gauche. Give it to the cleaning lady? Carla has no way to get those clunky devices uptown. Why not go to Gazelle.com? Through the use of space-age technology pioneered by NASA, Gazelle can give you competitive prices on your old electronics. Everything from iPods to iPhones to video games, whatever those things are. And we'll even take care of the shipping costs for you for free. If you act now, use the code TWI5, and Gazelle will give you a 5% bonus on the final trade-in value of all the items that you purchase. The code applies to all products except media like movies and games, and may only be used once per customer. Gazelle accepts products in 20 categories, representing more than 200,000 unique items, and the average customer on Gazelle makes more than $100 every time they Gazelle their gadgets. So what are you waiting for? Gazelle.com. Turn your old gadgets into cash. All right, let's move on to the episode.
Excellent.
Very nice.
Excellent work.
Very well. I do what I can.
Yes.
So the first thing I want to, an amazing episode yesterday.
Yeah.
So much going on. Before we go on further, I should introduce everybody, of course. My name is Lon Harris. I'm your host. Next to me, Janie Haddad Tompkins, joining us for this week, filling in for Ms. Jamie Foxx.
Yes, I'm Janie filling in for Jamie.
Janie filling in for Jamie because we like to keep things really clear and separate here.
I didn't know there was a show going on. I thought it was just free drinks.
Just hanging around and drinking? Well,
Yeah.
it is.
Pretty much is.
Let's be honest.
I'm totally cool with it. So.
It is essentially
So thank you for having me.
These cameras aren't even turned on. Next to her, Jason McIntyre, one of our regulars. The viewers wanted to know if you had the suspenders on underneath your shirt.
No. I have a belt on today, so no suspenders.
Yes. Look at that. He's moved up. It was the 40s. Now it's the early 60s. In
I'm getting there. This is ironic. The pinstripes. That's all it is.
And now next to her.
Ooh. Them's fighting words.
Next to him on the end, our regular co-host Jacob Birch,
Thank you.
resident old-fashioned expert. I got comments from last week. People really appreciated seeing the old-fashioned recipe. Many of them are enjoying it out there right now.
Good to hear.
So well done with that. So let's jump right into the episode of the good news. The episode was titled last night, episode number 3 of the 4th season. Here's my first question: is Don Draper getting predictable? Because I felt like in the early seasons of the show, you never knew. Every episode was like, there was like 2 or 3 shocks and surprises from Draper. That's one of the things that made him really compelling as a character. You had no idea where he was going to go next, what he was going to do. And now it seems like you're able to sort of guess a little bit ahead of time. Last week, we actually had a viewer in the chat room who said, oh, Don's not really going to go to Acapulco. He's going to go visit Anna Draper in Los Angeles. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And as soon as he said, you heard Harry Crane early in the episode say, oh, and you've got a layover in Los Angeles. I think everybody in the audience at that point went, oh, he's going to go see Anna Draper. And then he's dropping Stephanie off at home, and I think everybody was just waiting for him to make an awkward move on her.
On a young girl,
I didn't see that coming.
Oh, really?
I actually thought that could go either way, and I was a little disappointed when he did.
Yes, it was definitely disappointing on a number of levels. And also, I mean, well, because she's sort of his. I mean, she's not his real niece.
She's like a niece,
but she's sort of his fictionalized niece anyway.
Yeah.
And he even says to her when he first sees her, like, last time I saw you, you had no front teeth, and it's like, oh, now it's creepy. Now it's creepy.
But I think it was a good illustration of how low he is right now. Like how low.
Yes,
I agree.
How debased
He's like
the character.
I think he's
really
becoming. The only predictable thing about him is that he will definitely have a drink.
Yes, that's true.
That stays the same.
And perhaps a cigarette before, during, and after the drink.
Yes,
I think
that is.
those are the only things that are predictable.
Yeah.
No, that are not predictable. Look, the point is, he does two things. He smokes and drinks.
He smokes and drinks, and there is a great moment.
And attracts ladies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Used to. Anyway. I don't know about anymore. There was a great moment in this episode where Elaine is treating him to his father sent him some really nice whiskey for his birthday, and he pours down a little, and Don tries it and goes, no bite, and then he just pours himself like a lot
so
more.
much. I loved it.
And then leaves the office. It's amazing. That's a classic Draper moment.
That they purposefully did not say what label that whiskey was.
Right. You don't see what kind of whiskey it is.
Yeah, they were kind of cagey about it because I was like, I wonder what it is. I wonder what it is, and then they never said.
I would like to know what that is because if there's a whiskey out there that has no bite and is that smooth, I want to try it.
Yeah.
Here.
I think that was why they knew any whiskey people would be like, that whiskey really does have a bite, and they wanted it to just be a good moment.
Or maybe it's a whiskey that doesn't exist anymore or something,
Yes.
and they just didn't.
They
I don't
didn't
know.
even want to do the research, maybe, to figure out what the whiskey would have actually
To say it's
been.
smooth, fine, go,
Easier to
move
just
on.
have his hand cover the bottle, and you don't have to find out about
So on the predictable nature one, I think when they introduce Stephanie with a bikini on, it's sort of a hint this is going to be an object of desire somewhere. No, you don't want it to happen. You really, really don't want it to happen because, like him seducing his secretary, it's a typical power role. I'm a lot older than you. I can do this. This is sort of in and out. I think
What he is, he's an, I'm going to use a big word, he's an avuncular figure to her. He's an uncle figure to her. So it's creepy no matter how you slice it, even though he's not really a blood relation.
Right. Anyways, and beyond that is, I think the predictability is sort of a sign of the weakness. When you're sort of in a weak spot, you're in a low spot, you're near rock bottom, you're going to just keep doing what is comfortable, what are your tried and true tricks, and that's what he's trying. He's trying, and they're not quite working. There's like 4 or 5 failed seductions so far in this season, which is not new to the show, but it's certainly not at this. He's in a rut.
Yes.
We see him chasing younger women too. I mean,
Younger and younger every week.
yes,
now,
because there was the girl that was the friend of Jane's, that was sort of like the fresh out of college girl.
Right.
Then his secretary, who's very young, and now he's made a pass at this niece-like figure.
Sure. Who is the youngest yet? She's in college right now.
Yeah.
Presumably not even.
She said she's
senior
drinking
college.
age, but what is that, 18 back then?
Yeah.
I mean, so she's 18, 19 years old.
And with her newly found political stridency, you could presume she's probably a freshman or a sophomore.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
In college. So yeah, I mean, and Elaine makes a good point in the chat room. Like, it wasn't even necessarily a power thing. It was actually just kind of a pathetic moment for him. That because I think this was one of the ones where you're not surprised that he gets shut down by this girl.
Absolutely. I'm saying, like, if Don can succeed anywhere, it's with a innocent, susceptible someone to his age. It's
Right.
it's. So I think I wrote down easy target, for
Right.
a seducer like Don. Yeah.
So that leads into 2 other things I wanted to discuss. So we can jump right in. The first is, I guess, because that scene ends with the revelation that Anna Draper has cancer, some sort of terminal bone cancer that is probably going to kill her before Don gets another chance to see her. I mean, they make those sort of vague plans for the spring, but in his mind, he sort of knows this is an empty promise and she probably won't make it. Here was the weird thing I thought about this plot point, and I'd love to hear some other thoughts about it. In the mid-'60s, do we really believe somebody could have a terminal cancer diagnosis and the doctors wouldn't tell her? They would tell her family, but not her? That seemed like, maybe if it was a movie about the 1860s, I'd believe that, but
I don't know.
1964, I feel like your doctors would tell you if you had terminal cancer.
I bought it. I don't know the answer to that, but I definitely believed that the episode sort of hinges on her definitely not knowing, because there's that moment where he's like you think he might be telling her,
Right,
and then
yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna leave, and she just kind of seemed really guileless and
Well, right.
Yeah,
it led me to believe
know?
it's
I agree.
possible that she actually knows and is just letting everybody sort of think she doesn't know, because why
easier
burden them
that
and why
way.
make it this
Yeah.
strain? Why not
That's
live out?
interesting.
Why not live out the rest of her? That seems like a very Anna Draper thing to do. Would be like, I just want to enjoy the people in my life and not have them
Not burden them.
with every time we're around each other. We have to talk about
Right.
how I'm feeling and the cancer and everything. It seemed to me
Yeah.
almost a little more plausible. Although Wilbur fan in the chat room is saying in 1967 the doctors told his mom not to tell his dad that he had MS. So maybe
Interesting.
it is
Wow.
maybe it is in fact plausible. That's more
interesting.
that is a more primary source direct evidence than I can personally come up with. And Elaine is making the point in the chat room as well. I think that is a good one, that Anna dying is basically Dick Whitman dying. And he writes
Yeah.
Anna and Dick on
Yeah.
the wall, 1964, and it is basically she's the only one that really knows the truth about him. And it's interesting too that Dick Whitman is such a separate character from Don Draper.
Honestly.
I'd really like, we were gonna talk about that a little bit more as well, but yeah, it's really, Don gets out to California, the suits come off, and his whole personality changes. He's smoking pot, which he would not do in Manhattan. He's been offered it before.
He loves LA.
Yeah.
He loves it. He gets in that convertible,
Yeah.
and he's just driving around, and I actually thought for a moment that he might hook up with try to find that chick, Joy, from last year.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, the gypsy chick, right?
Yeah, it was
Right.
like, but did she even exist? I don't know. It seemed like a construct,
Yeah, that was
Joy
almost like a fantasy sequence.
Yeah, but I
kind
was
of
sort
thing.
of curious, if there was going to be a hint of that.
Yeah, it's like this whole weight just disappears off his shoulders and he just becomes more of an easygoing, casual guy. It makes you wonder at this point, like, what is holding him to being Don Draper? Like,
It's the only life he's known for how long?
But I mean,
you have to assume that would be.
I feel like if it wasn't for the kids, he probably he could just as easily just stop being Don Draper one
But
day.
I think he wants to shed his awful childhood. Mm-hmm. And that, he never ever wants to face that.
Right.
He doesn't confront
yeah.
that. He doesn't explore that. So.
Yeah.
And I think they invite him really tying himself to his work near the last couple episodes of season 3, where he sort of commits to it, saying, no, this is what I am an admin, and I'm going to just keep going to it. Because I think there's hints of season 2 and 3 him giving it all up, especially with Betty exiting the picture, and he just sort of re-ups with the idea that this is who I am.
Yeah, and of course, SteelWheel, who was the person who guessed correctly last week that Anna Draper would appear this week, is correcting me that Don smoked pot once in season 1 with his beatnik girlfriend.
With
SteelWheel was the
Rosemary
one.
DeWitt.
SteelWheel is
on the
fire.
ball.
I'd like
the
to
wheel, if you will.
I'd like to know
Is SteelWheel a writer for the show?
That'd be nice.
SteelWheel is Matt Weiner. We all know.
Hi, Matt.
I
Thank
just
you.
wasn't saying anything. We all know.
My prediction in the first episode was Betty would die. I was that close. Mrs. Draper at some sort would die.
Mrs. Draper is
close.
dying.
Oh, really?
Wrong.
Really?
That close.
I felt like the whole episode in general was about loss. The loss of Anna. I also think him hitting on that young girl, it's the loss of his youth.
Yes, I think
Because
loss
he's
of youth,
confronting that sort of like middle age area where it's like, I have 2 kids, I'm a divorced man,
Yeah.
I need
Why
to grow
can't I
up.
be single?
Yeah, why can't, I'm not an adult, I'm a child kind of thing. And then there was other loss. Lane lost his wife left him. And
Joan is
Joan
losing her husband.
her
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's tons more to talk about with the
Yes.
Joan story. Let's come back to that
Joan.
because there's so much going on this week. Like I said, it was a packed episode. It really felt like 2 episodes in one. There was like that first half, Don in L.A., and then that second half, which is with the Joan story, and then the amazing Don and Lane Price guys' night out
About
story
on New Year's Day. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Lane is quickly becoming another one of my favorite characters. We can come back to that.
Well,
sure.
I wanted to have later in the show. We'll actually
he
do
likes
this.
Lane too.
I was going to say because Lane's always been one of the characters I really liked. He's very wry. He always has one great line per episode. And I was saying, I think to Jason earlier this evening that. He had my favorite line in the entire Christmas episode last week, where Lee Garner's opening the present, and it says Polaroid in huge letters on the box, and then he's standing behind there and goes, "It's a Polaroid!" And it's just so perfectly done, such false enthusiasm. So he's long been one of my favorite characters, and I'd like to go around the table and talk about what other characters would we love to see get their own episode like this, where it really gets to focus on them. So we'll come back to that. One thing I wanted to talk about, an observation I made. Is about holidays. This really feels like a theme that's tying this whole season together. All 3 episodes so far have been set at a major holiday. The premiere was at Thanksgiving,
Yep.
then we had the Christmas episode, and now we have the New Year's episode. And it's really
It's like, what's sadder than the holidays when you're divorced?
Seriously.
You know what I mean?
Right,
And then,
yeah.
he's getting brutally, he's getting really drunk. We've never seen Don really, he's been drunk before, sure. In the pilot, I think he took
Oh,
a
he's
nap because he was lazy.
medicating.
Yeah, absolutely.
He
But
is.
everyone is at the time. But he's really bad off. And I think this whole holiday drunk thing is kind of maybe, I don't know, masking. I'm still saying this, he's in a huge downward spiral. He's going to hit rock bottom at some point, either in the season or maybe at the end. But I think the holidays are masking that because even Lane's getting wasted right now. Not that he wouldn't.
And VP Birds is guessing in the chat room Valentine's Day maybe next week, which is something we had actually thought of here.
Oh,
maybe.
interesting.
maybe they'll go right for that next. But yeah, I definitely agree that the holidays, it makes all of these sad times about losing your family just that much sadder. And it really ties in, I think, with the whole theme of this season, which was the difference between, you know, what's expected of you and what you really want, which Faye, the ad marketing executive, brought up during the Christmas party. And then basically Don echoed it to Lane, where he's like, is that what you want, or is that what is expected of you? So that's really been like a whole thing that's tying this whole season together. And that's holidays, too. These are days when there's something expected of us.
And that's adulthood, too. I think that he's struggling with. I mean, you know, you do things because they are expected of you. People are relying on you.
Right.
You know, and he doesn't necessarily act the way he's supposed to.
Right.
You know?
Well, that was also the shot during the Christmas episode. It might have been the last shot of the episode where he's walking down the hallway slowly with all these presents, but it's a burden. It's not joyous like you'd think of Christmas being.
Yeah, he sent his secretary out to buy them.
He sent his secretary out there, all these really nicely pointed presents, and then he's carrying them all, like lumbering out of the office.
Yeah, with like one arm, briefcase on the other hand, like kind of balancing them.
And it has none of the like excitement, joy, happiness that you would associate with you know, with Christmas
morning,
And yeah, I mean, I think all three of the episodes, like Thanksgiving, you're expected to be sort of thankful, and yet Don has, you know, nothing to be thankful for. And in fact, he's spiteful. He has that cutting remark to Henry on Thanksgiving night. And then Christmas is supposed to be about giving, but everybody is acting really selfishly on that whole episode. And you even get that great Bert Cooper line where they're, you know, he's talking about socialism and Medicare and all this stuff. And it couldn't be less of a giving sort of situation. And then New Year's is supposed to be about new beginnings, and all these characters are just
stuck in a rut.
Yeah, stuck
in their circumstances.
Yeah, nobody's able to begin anew, and Don is just slipping further and further into sort of depressed alcoholism.
Yeah.
So it's really like reflective of the whole show. There's what's expected of you, and then there's what's really going on, which has nothing to do with what's expected of you. Oh, which ties in, yes, with the advertising theme as well.
This is just a little nerdy side note, but did you notice that they brought back? I noticed because the actor is a personal friend of mine in real life, but they brought back the gyno who from the pilot episode,
the chain-smoking gynecologist,
who told Peggy not to be the town pump, and then I guess he'd performed that's played by the great Remy Aubergenois, who's wonderful, and they should bring him back. But if you're listening, because he's awesome, but. I guess he performed some procedures on Joan.
Well, he performed a procedure, then somebody who claimed to be a midwife performed the other one, which is, you know, a fascinating little bit of backstory. It actually made me think, I guess we'll move into the Joan story, excuse me. You're Jane.
Yeah,
which, you know, it reminds you how much like Don Draper she is. In some ways, we really know very little about her. She's very closed about her personal life. We know her as this sort of, like, the expert at managing the office, but we really don't know anything before Sterling Cooper, what was her life, before, you know, she was married to Greg, what was going on with her. I mean, it's really like a closed off. So we don't know, like, one of those abortions was that, you know, Roger's baby, or, you know, who was it, other guys?
Yeah, and she passed up Roger.
Yeah.
She passed up Roger, and Jane came in and swooped him away.
Jane came in, right, exactly.
And now she has to be with that horrible rapist.
Yeah, exactly. So that,
like, missed that
that's
episode.
Something...
Wait, what?
No, when Greg raped Joan,
Sorry, there's spoilers on the Mad Men show.
And actually, one of the things that's most troubling about reading blog posts and stuff about Mad Men, just to step away from the show itself for a second, is how many times you'll read about that scene and people have it in like quotations where, like, you know, her husband like raped her. It's like, no, he raped her. I mean, it's not.
It was not consensual. It did not.
No, yeah, it's not an ambiguous scene at all. And I've read even critics discussing it as if it was in some way ambiguous.
Well, let's just set the record straight. She did not say yes to that.
She was fighting him.
Yeah.
It was clearly right. So that I mean, to me, that makes this episode really kind of fascinating, almost troubling in a way. That Greg has been this consistent negative force in the show. Bully. He's a rapist. He's a professional disappointment. He's whiny. I mean, he's maybe the least likable character in the entire show, which is saying something in the show.
He's a nightmare.
Yeah, and
he's the worst.
And we all, I think, everybody who watches it feel like he's not worthy of Joan.
Oh, no.
She's like smarter than he is.
Yeah, like what is she doing with him? So that's why it's odd that this episode is, in a way, kind of a redemptive moment for him. Not completely, obviously. Don't misread me, but But you know, I mean, it's a nicer side of him. We feel sympathy for him because he's obviously in denial about having to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
He can't, you know, he's not even processing. She's like, "You're going," and he's like, "Well, you don't know that." And yes, we do. It's 1965. You're in the army. You're going to Vietnam. So you know, there's that, and then we see what he's like, his bedside manner for the first time, and he's probably a really nice guy, and he's a good doctor, and then that little way.
He's competent.
He
I mean,
did
he's
tell
Not a surgeon, but a doctor. You know,
He did tell a donkey dick joke,
he told a donkey.
Yeah.
There was a lot of.
but it was charming.
There was a lot of dick in this episode. While we're on this, there's Dick. There's Dick Whitman. Does Howdy Doody have a wooden dick joke that Don makes, and then there was the whole donkey dick joke.
And then Lane put the steak on his.
Lane put this thing. I got a Texas belt buckle.
his
Yeah.
belt buckle.
And then there were hand jobs happening in the theater.
Right. That's where
Wow,
that.
there was a lot
There
of that in
was.
this episode.
I forgot about that
I want
one.
to change my Lost theme. Can I change the Lost
theme was
theme
dick.
to?
That was a really funny, like, little aside. Like, you know what's going on in here? Hand jobs. Very
Very
out of
pitch-like.
step.
Now it's taking on this homoerotic.
Yeah,
the
a little
thing.
bit.
And-
So anyway, but
No. Even in the comedy club, it was like,
well, right, they were making the gay
yeah.
jokes about
We're
them.
divorced, not homosexual, or whatever.
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
is.
that's
right.
true.
That's
I
true,
guess
there was.
divorced men, maybe they were sort of seen as that.
Well, when
back
they
in the
locked
60s.
eyes across a men's room or whatever was the guy's joke. So anyway, to go back to Greg for a second, because I do want to explore what everybody else thinks about it. Like why do that story about him now? Like why go take another look at Greg, who I think we'd all sort of had our judgment about him. I thought they were going to write him out of the show, frankly. I thought he was going to, go join the army and we wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. So why do this episode? Is it just to, like, muddy the waters and make everyone nuanced and complicated, or do you think there's something more going on?
I think it's two things. One, I think it's that. They complicated him just because what you said, he was one of the few flattest characters. He was an easy target, easy person to hate.
a bad guy.
And if they're going to send him away to Vietnam and they're going to, I don't know, kill him off, but if they're going to do something negative to him in Vietnam, you need...
Oh, they want you to feel a little worse for him when he...
Or more worse for Joan. Like, she's actually
Yeah,
losing
yeah.
something.
So do you think Joan will get pregnant before he leaves, or the story will be that she didn't get pregnant and now, like, because
We could get
the
a single
doctor,
mom story.
played by Remy Auberjonois, said you waited a long time, and technology in the 60s wasn't like it is today. Like
That's
you
true.
had to actually think about your biological clock
So
differently
she's in
then.
what, like mid-30s, Joan? Early 30s? Do we know how old Joan is?
So
actually?
she seems
No, maybe
like
the
she's
chat
like
room
34.
knows. Maybe
Yeah, I would guess
know.
32 or 33
32,
if
yeah,
I had
yeah.
to guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I would guess that she probably will not get pregnant in the next few episodes. They could even have he goes to war and then she gets pregnant.
Oh, yeah,
and
by
is it
Roger.
Rogers
Yeah.
or someone
Let's
else. I mean,
get
I could see
Roger and
them-
Joan back together.
I could see
Wait a
them
minute.
going down
How
that
long
road.
is he?
Potentially.
He's in boot camp for 6 weeks.
He's
and that's-
going. We don't know when he's exactly going to boot camp. He'll be there for 6 weeks, and then he'll come back, and then he will go to war, presumably, or he doesn't.
And
think
we
so.
don't, but we don't know when he's going. It could be any time now, right? Isn't
They
that the
could
whole point
spring
of
it
her
on
taking
us
the
next
2 days
week.
off?
Right. No,
Okay.
well, she knows he's going to be there then before he goes to boot camp.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't know. We don't know when he's actually going to go off to war, or if maybe he won't.
So
Maybe
the
he
next
won't go off to war.
episode could be Valentine's Day because that would be about 6 weeks.
I'm at this point. I
mean, if
feel
he
like,
leaves now.
I feel like they
January
would cut
2nd.
it. I don't think they're going to do a whole season where it's not
Jumping from
it's
holiday
not
to
a
holiday?
long Halloween. I don't think
The
they're going to do
Flag
just
Day.
all holiday themed.
I can't wait for Arbor Day because that
That
episode,
episode is going to be so
it's
awesome.
going to be so layered.
Yeah, the Martin Luther King episode is just going to be weird.
Off the-
It's just going to be strange.
Yeah.
Weird day.
At that point,
Confusing.
Nothing going on.
1965.
Yeah, right. No, it's the different.
Well-
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah.
I was commenting on it.
It's like, hey, nothing happened today. This is weird.
Just another Monday.
All right. And before we move off of the Joan plot line, I do have to mention the amazing, it was Peggy's only scene. And you could tell she was so excited. Like, she's, as far as she's gone, she still looks up to Joan and wants approval from Joan, who told her to, like, stop dressing like a kid and sort of bossed her
Yeah.
around. And she gets her moment, and she gets to throw in, like, oh, I'm hanging out with my boyfriend. And then immediately Joan gets pulled away by the rose mix up the flowers, and Peggy doesn't get her moment of satisfaction. It was really funny and really, like, perfectly timed, and you could see in Peggy's face, like, now she'll have to try again and work in the boyfriend into
It
another
was so
conversation.
sad when she said at least one marriage is working out. When,
You're right, yes.
When it's just so awful.
It's an awful
I had
coupling.
to-
And,
I like the moment too when Lane calls his secretary, and Sandy, I think her name is,
Yes.
and she leans in and goes yes, and then Peggy's right behind like, what's going on in here? Everything okay? And it's like, no, get out of here, Sandy, and then calls her right back again. That was a great moment.
And that actress, I think we should give props to that actress because she was so funny when she popped out and then popped back in and seemed kind of like frozen and scared,
yes.
you know, because she had such a
Yeah.
a short little time to establish.
yeah, she's so
her
like, it
humor.
wasn't my fault. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great moment.
Would you tell me off there, pal? One more thing I want to bring up.
Empty.
One more thing I want to bring up while we're discoursing on the episode itself is all the. This is the first real counterculture moment. Thank you, Jacob. Well done. Good job.
Well prepared.
This is the first real mention we've gotten, like real, where the counterculture is sort of invading the whole show, which is appropriate, I guess, being at 1964
Sure.
Into 1965. And I don't know if it's so much that we've been locked up in this very East Coast establishment environment, and now when we go to LA, we see like what the rest of the country is like, or if it's just that this is that time. But if you think about all the different counterculture references we got, she's a Berkeley student, so we hear about the sit-ins, and do you agree with what they're doing, and her sort of political back and forth with Don about advertising is pollution, and Don is, well, stop buying things, and she's like, well, I might one day.
One of my favorite lines of the episode.
And I mean, there's a lot of others that are smoking grass, and they're referring to it as grass. They go to the comedy club, and then the guy comes on and starts playing House of the Rising Sun.
Yeah.
I mean, even these really iconic hippie kind of song. And even the very opening scene, we were hearing about birth control and Joan's abortions, and so all of these very very 60s counterculture kind of references coming in. And the interesting thing I thought, if you're talking about Don's character, is he's really not that resistant, certainly as much as somebody like Lane would be, or Roger or Bert, or a lot of Pete Campbell. A lot of these other establishment guys that he works with they're gonna have a very hard time dealing with the counterculture. Don seems more like he can go with it. He's willing to smoke pot. He bought his kids Beatles records for Christmas, and you remember even in the first season he was kind of hostile to taking on the Nixon campaign account. Like, he doesn't really seem like he's necessarily as anti-counterculture as all the people he works with, except for the consumerism part. Like, that part is really going to bother him, because he's so much of what he does and so much of how he sees the world, and his worldview is caught up in, like, people define themselves by their things. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to really clash with the young people on that point, I think.
I don't know how resistant Campbell would be. You listed him, and he's, he was a staunch Kennedy supporter when he died, and was, in on the teens and in on the Negro market. So
right, that's true. He was the one who wanted to market. What was that? What was the product he wanted to market? Yeah, but he wanted to market stuff too.
The highlight thing or something?
No, there was some. It might have been.
Oh.
I remember, but there was a product he wanted to aim at the black market, which is called the Negro market in the show. And then the rest of them didn't want to do it, and so he was the only one on that side. So, that may be a good point, that it's going to be a divisive thing in Sterling Cooper, where some people are going to kind of get it, and Harry, you presume because of his media connections, might get it.
Well, they mentioned the civil rights thing in the other episode. Mm-hmm. Those boys being killed in Mississippi and all that.
Right, yeah. And Paul, we remember from season 1, was like he went to Selma to march.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he went to march, and he was always doing, he was very what do you call it, counterculture. Or at least it really just seemed like he was just trying to be, because it made him
or
cool.
Something. Yeah.
Right. But maybe that's how they'll bring him back. I just wouldn't mind seeing him back.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's interesting that that's the one thing that's a really direct threat to Don, is that if people stop associating themselves so closely in their personalities with what they buy, because that's really his business, and that's how he works, and that's his whole sort of philosophy of life, is that you are what you buy, and your personality is so caught up in, you're a Lucky Strike man or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting thing to pick up. Anything else specifically about the episode? I know we had talked about the movie that they went to go see.
Lane in general, can we just, how many great moments Lane had?
Yeah, I'd like to talk. We're definitely going to have to talk about Lane, because I want to hear everybody else's pick. Like, if you could have... I will just move on to this. If you could pick any other character to have, like, their own kind of episode, who would it be? Who doesn't get enough attention on the show?
So who are we striking out? Who gets enough attention?
Well, I would say that the mains would be Don and Betty, Peggy and Joan, maybe Roger.
Okay.
Like those are your main characters. So anybody else from The Office that you feel like doesn't get enough, or not even from The Office, just in the show generally.
Ken Cosgrove.
Ken Cosgrove
Accounts.
So, Ken, it seems like, and we may want to just roll this clip. Let's take a look. Ken is obviously going to figure back in the show. He's coming back. AMC had their preview up on the web of what the next episode is going to be. A little clip. So can we take a look at that? Let's roll that now.
I hate this office.
You wanted to be close to Roger.
Make yourself at home, why don't you?
Did you see Sunday's paper?
This is about the Playtex ad they keep complaining about. I've been told the printer swapped paper stocks, and I don't care if she looks like a Puerto Rican. Puerto Rican girls buy brassieres.
Not that they need to. Saw this one on the subway, and one on those striped Gene Seberg shirts, red rag in her hair, nipples.
I'm not in the mood. What do you want?
Cosgrove's getting married.
So?
He took us to the opera last month. Great seats, and now I know why. Turns out her father shits gold ingots.
What does he do?
CFO at Corning. My father-in-law's a bus driver. The only place he can take me is to the moon.
Ken's the competition. Why are you going to the opera with him?
Guy is twice our size. And we're friends, aren't we?
Friends. Why are you always looking for a job?
What? Look, Pete. There's a group of us. We're all coming up together. You don't think Kenny's a comer? You know he has Mountain Dew? It's Pepsi. We're having lunch tomorrow. Tag along. He always asks about you.
Of course he does.
Worst case, Kenny will brag too much and you can steal a client from him.
So yeah, clearly Ken. I'm guessing we're going to go to this event where they're all going with Ken, and I'm hoping we'll even see maybe Paul Kinsey will be there, some other blasts from the past will be there, and we'll get to catch up with some characters that we've haven't seen yet.
That would be nice to see.
Yeah.
I'd like that.
I'd like that.
Yeah.
That'd be some nice fan
See
service.
the old gang from Sterling Cooper.
There's a wonderful YouTube clip that came out in the middle of 3 and 4 of the best pickup line. I think it's The Art of Seduction by
Yes, it's
Mad Men.
all their best pickup line
Ken
moments.
really has every great one, and that they're all so terrible.
Do you remember any of them?
Ken Cosgrove accounts when he's trying to hit on
It's Ken Cosgrove. Accounts.
Oh yeah.
I think he might be. It's an old guy that says I can get lost. I could lose a nickel in those
I
dimples.
could lose a nickel in those dimples.
Oh my God.
Creepy.
It's 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes of awesome.
Just fantastic. I'll try to find that.
That sounds like a fun.
Throw it in the chat room.
And the other one that got brought up a few times in the chat, and I'm going to second, is Trudy. Always has never given a really fair shake, but every time she's on, it's sort of wonderful. She has my favorite moment in the last episode of season 3 when she's with Pete and just sort of in the background, clearly really paying attention, but trying to hide. So she makes me happy, and I'd like to have her do.
Yeah. Trudy's pretty awesome.
And Elaine in the chat room thinks you like Ken because you look like Ken.
Undoubtedly. Although
He is your Mad Men doppelganger. He is your Mad.
although he parts left, I part right. I used Mad Men to decide what side of
last
the.
week a little.
What?
We discussed that pre-show last week a little. You were commenting on how the camera doesn't catch.
I was yes, but I would just Roger Sterling is actually the reason why I part right. So to left. So there
that.
you go, little trivia.
That's good.
In the Jacob Birch front. J-Mac, pick a character.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was gonna say Roger, but I mean, he is given a lot of attention.
That's
so
why
can
I
Like,
asked.
I'll
Actually.
just
last
say-
season and this season, we're getting a lot more of Roger.
Yeah.
In the first couple seasons, I would have totally been there with you.
Well,
He has one of my favorite scenes overall in the show, which is when he ate too much oysters, Rockefeller,
Yeah,
at
Oh,
lunch,
yeah.
and has to
and then has to walk up the stairs
Right.
and vomits everywhere.
Okay, well then, how
It is
about
awesome.
let's explore the character of Lane more. Let's see this
Yes.
this English fish out of water experiencing American culture. I mean, we kind of got a little bit of it last night. Him joking about
More
the
than a little, I think.
It's the-
I mean, I
I
was
got
a fan.
plenty.
I'm fine
It's the
with
whole
it,
British
but-
invasion symbolism, I think,
Yeah.
of that time period.
Yeah, I mean, I love.
I'd like to see more Lane. is
I
the
love
answer
how
to your
we
question.
played around last night with his like stiff upper lip. I read a little interview that Jared Harris did, who plays it. By the way, fascinating. I did not know any of this. Jared Harris is actor Richard Harris's son, the guy who's playing Lane, and his stepfather. His mom divorced Richard Harris and then married Rex Harrison, and that I think is fascinating because clearly Rex Harrison is a model he's using for Lane Price.
That's awesome.
With that,
That is interesting.
Yeah, what he's calling an iron fist and a velvet glove. So he's always looking for a diplomatic way to solve his problems, but there is like a really steely, like he knows what he wants and he knows what he's trying to get behind it, and he's just got this, you can't read him, he's got this very like dry, very sort of unemotional way of doing things.
The first scene with Joan, the fried chicken scene, is
Yes.
really indicative of that. Of don't go cry about it, you know.
Yes,
so.
right. And then he sends her roses to make up to her, and
Joan,
they
please
get
forgive me.
misrouted. So his wife gets roses that says,
And
"Joan, please forgive me."
Yeah, clearly that was the straw that broke their marriages.
Clearly,
Yeah.
a big mistake. And
Had a row.
and then the scene with Joan firing her was, incredible. Great.
Classic Joan.
Classic
Egregious.
Joan moment.
I don't know
Classic
what
Joan.
that means. It means you can't take the blame on yourself. You're fired.
So
And she just walks out.
So yeah, Lane would be my choice. Trudy is a great. I didn't think of that one, but Trudy is
Trudy's
definitely
cool.
a character I could see wanting to see more of. And the one I think someone in the chat room said it, but I'm going to bring it up. Bert Cooper.
Yeah,
I love Bert Cooper, and you only get these little tastes of it. Like there was that one episode where he was like a huge Ayn Rand fan, and he's trying to like give.
The Fountainhead, I think.
The Fountainhead to like other people, and I mean,
And he
it's
has
just,
his Rothko painting.
Yeah,
which is
right.
so
And
cool.
I mean, I could watch a whole episode that was just following him. Rather, it'd be fun if they did that, like a whole little side episode where you're just seeing like a week in Bert Cooper's life.
One word, spinoff.
Yeah, I think he's just like charmingly eccentric and hilarious, and I could watch like a whole show just about him. So, anything else to say about the clip from next week? Any other guesses as to where we're going from here? What we're gonna?
I
cannot guess.
tried that
I never
last
guess.
week with the coming soon, and it just screwed me over.
Yeah, they're SteelWheel again. Matt Weiner in the chat room correcting us. It was Atlas Shrugged was the book.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Matt.
Oh.
Thank you, Matt.
How do you do that? Are you looking this up on Wikipedia, or
There is a
are
Mad
you-
Men wiki. I don't know how good it is, though,
I don't
but
know
I know
if,
it exists.
if this could possibly be live, but it's amazing. And Frosty Feast brings up a little point I didn't think of, but Patricia Neal died, obviously, and she was in the film version of The Fountainhead. So it all comes full circle.
Oh, it all came
That's
full circle.
sad.
It all comes back
And
around.
she had cancer, and cancer was in this episode.
And she had cancer, which was in this episode. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Can someone work in
Or
a
Anna
dick
Draper.
joke at this point, right now? We could wrap this whole thing
Oh
up.
my
Quick,
God.
chat room.
Chat room, go.
We'll get the chat room on it. So I guess that's our show. That about wraps it up for this week. I always forget to do this because I drink a lot during the show.
Here's to ya.
I do want to let's bring this up on the screen. I want to thank Mahalo. I use their Mad Men Season 4 recap and spoilers page a lot during the show to prepare. It's a great page. They've got a lot of great videos and stuff on it. I'll include it in the show notes. I'm going to drop the link into the chat room right now. But I do appreciate their help. It's a great resource. Go check it out. Thanks to the entire panel. Janie, amazing job today. Come back.
Thank you for having me.
anytime you
I'm
like. It
such
was
an uber fan of Mad Men, so this is just
and by extension, our show.
yes.
And I appreciate that.
And free drinks.
And free drinks. Yeah.
Why is that?
And
A winning combination.
I actually won't be here next week. I'll be in the
won't.
chat room, though. I'll be cheering
we
from
have
elsewhere.
the lovely Judalina Nera, who co-hosts our social media show and is on This Week in YouTube. She will be joining us next week. So, if you don't want to come back, don't come back. It's okay.
I'm going out west. I don't know when I'll be back.
Really?
We'll see.
You're going out to visit your fictional
out
life?
west being about, I don't know, 20 blocks that way to the ocean. That's
Yeah.
as far
That's
west
about
I
as
can go
far
from
west as you need to go, yeah.
St. Peter's a bit of a drive. You can go ahead there.
here. All right.
Yeah,
where,
that's right.
Where does
San Pedro it is.
Where does Anna live in San?
Anna lives in San Pedro, and Don makes reference to like, well, you took her some Pedro doctor. Which I thought was
Oh,
great.
okay, yeah, okay.
And then one other note, as long as we're nerding out on LA geography, that I was noticing. So San Pedro, and then they say they live in
Pasadena.
South Pasadena. That is a long drive, especially if you've been drinking. I don't know if that was advisable for him to drive her home.
Now, a shorter drive. Driving while you're drinking, that's fine.
Great
Is that what
idea.
you're saying, Lon?
But no, I mean
No,
that's
bad.
an hour each way, easy.
Unadvised to
Do
drive
they
while
have
drunk.
traffic in 1965?
I don't know. They had less. Had to have
a lot
The
less,
major
right?
freeways
Yeah.
existed, so the 10 was definitely there, and the 101 was probably there as
The
well.
110 would have been there.
And the
so.
110 probably would have been there. So he probably would have had to twist and turn from San Pedro to get to them, to get to the freeway. But once he got to the freeway, he would probably.
But it seemed like
was late at night,
her
too.
sister was making that trip every day. It seems.
I know, but I'm just
She's
saying.
bringing her groceries and laundry and
Even today, with our amazing transportation system around Los Angeles, it's a hefty.
It's a haul.
It's probably a longer drive.
It's a long haul.
I'm sure it is.
Oh yeah, the traffic would make it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no matter how you slice it, that's a long haul late at night, and that's why they get home and the mom says like, "Yeah, I heard you pull up at 2:30 a.m." Well, it's like, well, it's far from San Pedro. This is a long drive, and definitely don't hitchhike. If you take anything I say to heart from this episode, please don't hitchhike.
But she does it all the time.
She
Yeah.
apparently
She does it
does.
all-
She apparently does
Yeah.
it all the time. I have to bounce away from her chat room right now. So thanks to everybody for joining the show. I appreciate it. Please do, if you're enjoying our show, subscribe to it on iTunes. We would really appreciate it. And thanks a lot. And that's it for This Week in Mad Men. You watch it.